I definitely have a good sense of what I would, what I did and what spots I would, play the same or what spots I would play differently. And overall, I think I played very solidly, and a few spots I would definitely play a little differently. So I'm gonna start the video. And just to briefly recap the players that are at most of my tables, this Osvoya Kruger guy, he is a Spanish short stacker and rat holder. Not a big fan of him. And Marauder 1 is at most of my tables. He is some sort of regular. I think I've seen him limp a few times. Other than that, he seems okay. I don't really know too much about him. But, he seems like he's some sort of regular. And Barking Snake is also a regular who seems pretty tight and is also, from what I understand, a bit of a break-even-ish reg. So, first hand right away is top right. Okay, so Manulu, who I don't know who he is, but, he's on a couple tables, seems, pretty reggish. He 3-bets Froig, who is a half-stacking, weaker player. Don't know much about him either. And first a couple things. When I think about Manulu's range here, I think it's going to contain very few pure bluffs, like 5-4 suited hands. So I think he's going to be much more weighted towards value hands. That said, I think that his value range can definitely be widened in this spot, to include a lot of big Broadway hands, pocket nines, stuff like that, because Froig is opening 24% of hands over a small sample, and, he's probably going to be calling a lot of 3-bets, he's probably pretty reluctant to give up. So the thing about here in this spot is that if I 4-bet the jacks and then call a shove, I don't think that Manulu is going to put me on a bluff, a 4-bet bluff. Like, it's really tough for him to put me on a bluff with Froig left act, because he's gonna, suspect that, I know that he isn't going to be very light here, so, why it's not a good spot to 4-bet bluff. So I don't really like 4-betting here, and I think it's a bit too strong to fold for 8.5 more big blinds. Out of position, it's going to be tricky, but Manula's 3-betting 11% over 182 hands, so I think his value range could be pretty wide here. I think, no matter what you do here, it's going to be pretty marginal, but I like calling in this spot. One possible outcome that would be pretty nice is if we get a good flop, there's definitely a chance we could get the money in quite good against Froig, since he's almost certainly going to call as well, and he does. So, I mean, this is a good flop. It's a good flop, but if Manulu bets, then, it's not really that great, and it's pretty close whether I would, check fold or not, because, like, it's very tough for him to put me on a very weak range when I flat here. Like, like if he's going to put me on a range of, like, pocket 8s through aces, and then, ace queen suited, ace queen, king queen suited, I don't think he's going to bluff this flop almost ever. So I'd be tempted to actually just check fold the flop, when he bets into 2 people, including, one person with a very strong range, myself, and one person who has about a pot-sized bet left and, is probably not going to fold any pair. So, it seems, with no draws, it just doesn't seem like he would be bluffing. So I would definitely consider check folding the flop if Manulu bets pretty big out there. So, it's pretty marginal. The nice thing about this is that it is very unlikely, I think, that he bets a hand like ace king or ace queen here for all those reasons. So, there is that to kind of make it a better call pre-flop, I think. So, okay, so now the turn, it's a good spot to lead out. I want to get money in against Froig. And, if he has like a pair plus cut shot, like, I doubt he's going anywhere. And I don't want to give Manulu a free river. So I bet, and they both fold. I think that hand is pretty close. Between a bunch of, different options. But I think the part about 4-betting and, Manulu's range is definitely a good lesson to take away from that hand. Okay, so hand on the bottom right, Zvoya is going to 3-bet me. So he has about 60 big blinds. I recall, if you recall from the last video, he doesn't three bet that much in position. So I thought his range here was actually going to be pretty strong. And, it doesn't really matter, I guess, because I have kings, but I'm obviously going to get the money in. But, we don't have much history with four betting. I like to just four bet super small. I think that it's possible he could, sometimes put me on a bluff here. I think if he's three betting anything for value, he's just going to shove it, shove or call, whether I four bet small or four bet shove. So I think that doesn't make a difference, but it's definitely possible he has some sort of three bet folding range that has, some shoving potential, like ace two suited maybe, that he decides this is a three bet, but he's gonna fold to a shove. I mean, it's possible. It just lets him make another mistake, like flatting with a hand that's dominated, or shoving a hand that's dominated. I want to let him make that mistake, so I make a very small four bet. And he folds, so, obviously he had nothing. Okay, bottom middle, I fold 8-2 off to a small blind min raise. I hate folding two min raises in the big blind. I probably only fold, the bottom, 3% of hands or 5% of hands, but 8-2 off is just so bad. It's bottom 3% of hand, probably. It sucks, so I just fold. And hand the bottom middle. This is a good spot in the small blind to check fold, I think, most of the time. My hand, I have twos. My hand is just really, really bad here. It just, this flop hits so many different hands, so many hands. And, my hand has just no equity, when I'm called, and, I just have to check fold a turn, and I get raised on the flop a lot. It's a really good spot to check fold. I mean, I don't know. I know that Wasaball isn't that good, so I'm tempted to bet. But I mean, this coordinated flop, I like just giving it up. I don't think he folds, 40% or whatever. So top left, flop a gut shot, C bet, and he folds. Pretty good result. So yeah, bottom left, this Marauder 1 guy seems to be limping a bit. I mean, I don't know what he's limping with. Maybe small pocket pairs or suited connectors. I mean, I don't know. You don't really see a lot of people playing 25-18 with other normal reg stats and then limping occasionally. I mean, he might have just been misclicking, but I think I saw him limp a few more times. And yeah, Moonrunner is some sort of regular player. I think I've seen him around a bit. We played maybe at 5-10. Okay, bottom right hand is, against the Spanish short stacker. You can see he has about 100 big blinds in this hand, which obviously is outside of his comfort zone, which is good for me. So he opens under the gun, and he bets flop and turn, and I call. Not really looking to do anything else on those streets with this hand, pretty much ever. Against this type of opponent. And the river is pretty close. So, the river, by this point, it's very unlikely that I have a weak hand. That turn and river hits my flop calling range pretty well, pretty hard. So, yeah, this guy has a pretty high went to showdown. It's a bit thin, but I like betting small here. Against, a really good opponent who is going to be check raising that river for value sometimes, and maybe as a bluff, then I would definitely consider checking back. A lot of regulars are only going to be opening King Jack suited and King 10 suited, worse kings under the gun. And they're not going to be check calling queens on that river, so there's just not enough value in a bet. But against this guy, I think I can, try to squeeze out a value bet here. I think he might call down a bit light. Okay, so hand on the top right is also kind of an interesting spot. So I flat pre-flop, Manulu, C bets, and sorry, I'm still getting over this cold. Froeg raises small. He makes a pretty small raise. So I mean, he's a weaker player. I don't know exactly what his range is here, but it's one of those spots where, it's 30 big blinds, the pot's already really big, and I have an overpair, so all in is definitely what I want to be doing. So yeah, definitely think all in's the best play here. He could be check raising worse for value. He can, like ace six or sevens or whatever. Like, he can have a lot of those hands because, he could have all sorts of hands. And yeah, I mean, even if if he has the hand like eight seven, I have like super good equity against that because of the blockers. Like, my hand just does really well given the price. I'm being laid. Like it's $150 more, and there's already like, about 150 in the pot. Yeah, so I definitely think I have enough equity to shove here, and I do expect to get called by worse quite a bit. So yeah, it's really not that close. I mean, the one thing, if we are deeper, the one thing to consider is that his line is pretty strong. I mean, check raising out of position into two other people is often going to be a fairly strong hand, but in this spot where he has 200, $200, then it could be a lot of weaker hands and a lot of bluffs. So yeah, he had ace three for gut shot and overcard, so not too surprised. Okay, so hand on the top right, sorry, top left. Manulu three bets in the small blind, and I don't know what his, I only have 200 hands, so I don't know what his. I didn't check his three bet in small blind versus button, but I think you can pretty much always assume that some sort of regular is going to three bet more in the small blind than the big blind against your button opens. Just because like, if you have, there's so many hands that you'd rather just, flat, but in the big blind, but like in the small blind, you don't feel as comfortable flatting because you're worried about getting squeezed and being out of position and stuff. So a lot of regulars play more of a three bet or fold type game in the small blind, which I think is completely reasonable. So I'm gonna put him on a pretty wide range based on that limited information I have, which is 12% three bet over 200 hands, and yeah, and he's in the small blind. Another thing to note that's definitely relevant to this spot is we have about 120 big blinds effective. So I decided to make a 4-bet bluff here. I 4-bet bluff his 10 big blind 3-bet to 20 big blinds. I really like that size. I think that, I think he's going to have a hard time flatting with a lot of hands, even getting the price that he 3-bets. And if he does flat, it's really no big deal. I mean, I'm in position. He's going to have to check fold a lot. Yeah, I mean, I can control, the action a bit. And if I make it, 20 big blinds, and, given our stack sizes, I think he's less likely to jam a hand like 9-8 suited or, like ace-3 suited. As if, say I made it like 132 and we're 100 big blinds deep. In that spot, he's getting a much better price to jam. So I think that he's going to, especially with limited history, I think he's going to fold his bluffs, the vast majority of the time. Oh, it looks like in the bottom left, I check raise the flop. And I believe I check fold this turn. I might be wrong with that. Yeah, so I make it 120. Yeah, I mean, you could bet again on the turn in the bottom left. The problem is that the turn hits his range pretty well, that for calling the flop. I would definitely have to I think I would probably have to shove the river if I bet the turn. Yeah, because, he's going to have a lot of pair plus draws hands or, yeah, those types of hands. And I didn't know enough about him, and, I didn't really have any clean outs, so I just check fold there.